We are live. Hey, Brian, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Chuck. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. So, everybody, welcome back after the Christmas break and then a track camp that Brian and I did in San Diego, and we're back on our weekly schedule. And while we're at camp, Brian had an epiphany, and and so tonight is Brian's New Year's rant
My New Year's rant. Yeah,
because
I'm just, yeah, no, I guess that's the only thing you could really call it at this point. It's just a,
because I'm assuming that everybody at Christmas got gadgets and you want to bit or
yeah.
you want to rant.
So, this is probably going to shoot both of us in the foot in a lot of ways because, um, we rely on everybody else's gadgets to analyze their work, to determine their performance, to write their programming for the next month, to do all of those things. But you've all become a bunch of candy asses, really, and that's really what it comes down to. Nobody will ride in the rain anymore. It's too cold. It's nasty outside. It's terrible. Harden up, people. Good God, be bike racers. Back in the day, bike racers were hard, nasty, tough individuals. They used to joke around and slide Coke cans on the ground to pretend that everybody'd crash just to freak people out because they were evil, mean, nasty individuals. And that's the way bicycle racing should be. Bicycle racing now is like NFL football. It's practically flag. We all sit around on our Zwifts, pretending we're racing bicycles, can't drive worth a damn, don't know tactics, don't understand anything. We can actually run into each other in Zwift with no consequences. And y'all seem stunned when that happens in the real world. So here's my rant, get your shit together, quit worrying about what your power numbers are in a given freaking 30 seconds because nobody cares. Nobody's going to care. Hell, I don't even care. None of this actually matters. Be a bike racer before you're anything else. If you're sitting there staring at data before you can actually deal with a little bump in a road race or a track race, you're doing something wrong here, people.
All right, so I'm going to slow you down for a moment.
Oh, come on. I was just getting rolling, man.
Yeah, because not everybody is a bike racer. I mean, we do have folks that are out there who are looking at cycling from a perspective of training and that type of stuff. However,
do they ride with other people?
Exactly. However, they do go out and they do train with others, and there is that county line sprint and that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But let's back up a little bit because you and I had a discussion about what we think happened at Worlds.
Okay. Yeah. No. I one of the things that probably this is hitting really, really close to home for me. I fell into the same trap that I'm complaining about now. I got really focused on making sure that all of the metrics that I could cover, from nutrition to power numbers to 200 times to all of that stuff. I wasn't leaving anything on the table. I was frustrated, been frustrated for years now with Masters Worlds. I've been bridesmaid so many times that, I get a free ticket to the ball at this point. But I got so focused on my 200 more than anything else in a lot of ways that I forgot how to be a bike racer. I forgot that, you just turn the lizard brain on, you turn any higher thinking, you turn all analysis off, and you race your bike and you race it aggressively and you're a sprinter. I mean, that's the world I live in, where it's, all hargy-bargy and we whack into each other and drink lots of beer afterward and giggle about the fact that we've got, scars all over our elbows and our hips from this stuff. And I forgot that. And
so do you think it was the analysis of the data that you were collecting? Do you think that you were trying to collect too much data? Or was it that you were trying to collect data on yourself?
And both of those are good questions, and I don't know that either of them are entirely, a yes or no question. I think the big thing I did, and that's where the rant started, was I was focused too much. I was focused too much on my own data, and if you were focused on my data, and I pretended to ignore that, that would be one thing. But as we look at our own data anyway, right? I mean, I know you look at your data just like I look at my data. So,
no. I let my coach look at my data
after you've taken a peek at it.
Oh, well, maybe. Well, I just have to get in the right format.
Right. Understood. But I think that the thing I'm trying to get across in my blustery, grumpy ass self is I got overly focused on numbers as opposed to winning the bike race, right? It became, I want to make sure that I've got a good seed, because that gives me a really good opportunity to roll through the tournament and get a couple of easier rounds prior to hitting the really, really, really heavy hitters that I'm going to face later in the tournament. All of that, and quite frankly, I did a couple stupid things. Didn't even make it that far this year. To get past the I got blown out of the quarterfinals. So worst performance I've had in years and years and years. And I think it was because too much of my focus was on the data side of things. And I'm constantly quoting Top Gun anytime one of my meathead sprinters comes up and asks me something, because and I'll do it tongue in cheek, but I can come up with a Top Gun quote for every situation I've ever been asked, as a sprint coach anyway. And it's our pilots have become dependent on missiles. They'd lost some of their dogfighting skills. That's what happened to me. I lost some of my dogfighting skills because I was too worried about being dependent on missiles. And the analogy kind of fits.
Nope, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, because I've had athletes who have asked me something like, well, what type of power do I need to average during a crit? It's like whatever the power, whatever power is required to keep you in the top 5 until the last lap, and then you have to have whatever sprint numbers you can get across the finish line.
Sure.
No, I do agree that we can, especially you and I as coaches, we can get that analysis by paralysis.
Yeah.
But one of the other things I'd like to quickly talk about is there is all of these gadgets nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody's getting Oura, Whoop.
Yep.
The power meter was a significant change in our industry from the heart rate monitor.
Yep.
And now we've got everything. Pick a metric, and we can now measure it.
Sure.
So, at what point in time, from the athlete's perspective, are they getting too many gadgets? And from a coaching perspective, when does some of the gadgets just stop, guys? All I want your power data.
Well, I think this is where I try to redeem basically tanking both of our coaching programs by saying, you just need to go out and ride your bike hard. I love gadgets. I'm very guilty of loving gadgets. I know you have an affinity for them yourself, and they're useful. And as we've discussed, you pointed out that they have to be actionable. Yeah, absolutely, they have to be actionable. There has to be a purpose for, is it going to improve your training performance, which is going to improve your race performance or your event performance? And I recognize that, people are training for events that, that don't have a podium at the end of them. And that's absolutely fine and admirable and everything else. My world is a strictly racing world. So my brain comes across that way. My thought process comes across that way. But I think the general answer is, this is why you need a coach. This is why you need somebody else, right? I mean, I have athletes that they just want to dump everything on me, right? And I know you probably have the same. It's like, this is what I want to do. I want to, I want to do, Leadville. I want to do whatever. I want to do the Appalachian Trail.
Speaking of that, we will have a video out in the next day. Buddy of mine, Jim Weinstein, is they're hiking the full 2,000 miles. And Brian and I have done an interview with him. So we'll drop that off and just watch for that and see what that's all about.
Yeah, you want to talk about admirably nutso. That's certainly an impressive adventure that he's going on. So yeah, you guys definitely check that out. But whatever thing you're trying to do, having somebody else deal with the minutiae part of it. I mean, because I know we both dig down into the weeds, and we're looking for things, right? It's like, how do I squeeze 100th of a second out of your 200? How do you get 5 more average watts in a time trial out of your ride? All of these things. We're pretty deep into the weeds trying to figure some of this stuff out. So the more data that we can get as coaches, the better the faster we're going to make. I don't know that it's necessarily a better thing, because I think a good coach can look at somebody and know what they need, right?
Right.
An athlete they've worked with. One of my biggest pet peeves with coaches is walking up and going, what your athlete needs is blah blah blah, having this snapshot opinion of what they're doing, because the person has no idea where they were before today, right? How they got to this point, where they are on the journey, all of those things. But when you've worked with an athlete, as a good coach, I think you look at the athlete and go, this is what you need. I don't think you need all the data. The data is fantastic. Like I said, I love it. And it makes those decisions and those changes a lot faster, right? You don't have to drag it out for 3 weeks and go, oh, okay, well, you might be pretty fatigued right now. If I look at your HRV for, 4 straight days and see a plummeting HRV for 4 straight days, that might be an indication that we might need to do something else, right?
Yeah, I think this is a great point, because as you can remember, 6-7 years ago when we were using Training Peaks, one of the things we did to kind of measure fatigue was that training stress balance. Mm-hmm. We would look at TSB, and the scientific data was like, if your TSB is getting to -25, blah blah blah. But now everybody's devices are dropping in their walks, they're dropping in their gym workouts, they're dropping in their snow shoveling. It's literally dropping everything that they're doing into Training Peaks. And so all of a sudden you can have a person who cannot even really do an hour and a half at any decent pace, whose CTL shows that they're 103 and their and their TSB is right around a +6, and it almost makes that type of it almost makes that metric irrelevant.
Sure.
And that's kind of the interesting one. And I guess one thing you brought up a second ago, I used to look at it that I would have 2 types of athletes. I would have the scientific athlete and I would have the artist athlete. And the difference between the two was my scientific athlete was typically my newer athlete, my Cat 4, Cat 5. They're the folks like, if you told them, hey, go out and do an effort for 20 minutes and I want you to go, at 250 watts, they'd have to sit there and just look at the Garmin. That was the only way they could do it. And then I had an athlete, Lance. I don't know if Lance, if you're watching or not, shout out to you. Lance raced in the 80s, 90s, all the way up through 10 years ago. I would tell Lance to go out to do an FTP test. He would turn on his Garmin, stick it in his back pocket. He would get to a point, he would go as hard as he can for about 6 miles and then just stop. And I'd lead his data. Shit, it was 20 minutes. I mean, it was like, so he was, from his perspective, data really was interesting, but irrelevant. And so it's that, how do you get that balance of trying to go from that, scientific athlete to that artist athlete, to where the data then doesn't become a distractor. It just becomes a way of measuring.
Yeah. And it's a great question. And, and I would be willing to bet, somebody like Lance, somebody that's ridden forever, that you could say, okay, I want you to go out and ride 210 watts for 37.5 minutes. And I would be willing to bet if you blindfolded them, took the timing chain off a tandem and stuck them on the back, they would be able to do that within a minute or two and within 5 or 6 watts. Right.
Yeah. When we got the RV, he actually sent me a picture of the school bus that they had retrofitted back in the, latter part of the 80s to go to all the East Coast and West Coast races. So yes, he could.
Yeah, sure. And I think that's, you brought up an interesting point. It's typically newer riders, and and again, part of my rant stems from, I came from a football background and hate football at this point, because it's not football anymore to me. My old school brain is like, no, my CTE filled old school brain is it's not football to me anymore. But
you don't like the new kickoff?
No, I don't like the new kickoff. we only get one rant a day here, so don't we don't want to go there. But newer athletes absolutely need a mentor, a coach, a somebody. I mean, you don't necessarily have to hire one of us, but you should probably look into somebody. I mean, one of the things that I find interesting, and again, since I did no prep work for this whatsoever, I'm free form and all of this stuff. But one of the things that's always amazed me about people balking at, well, I'm not going to hire a coach. It's like, you just dropped 10 grand onto a bicycle that, I mean, I put my bicycle in my car and the value of my car triples, so it's always amazed me that, probably the best tool for your performance improvement, out there is going to be, somebody that actually understands the concept of what you're trying to do and can pay attention to some of that stuff, because it leaves you free, to do the work. Your job is to do the work. Your coach's job is to make sure that all of that works in your favor and you achieve the results you want to get. But, people in this sport, the sport of cycling anyway, will drop tens of thousands of dollars without thinking about it at all. Go into a local Friday night crit, stack the thing up, and wad a bunch, have a bunch of broken carbon pieces laying around, and then go and drop another 10 grand on the replacement. But we'll sit there and balk at the thought of, well, I should probably hire a coach. It's like, well, you know what? That's probably the single best thing you can possibly do to, to improve your performance.
I laugh about that because one of our local USA Cycling refs, and Mimi has refed all over the world. I mean, she's top notch chief official. And one day we were all lining up at I think it was a road race, and she goes, "Well, you can tell this is a Masters." And when you look, there wasn't a bike that was under $10,000 on the front line with zip wheels. I mean, the whole 9 yards.
Oh yeah.
So now you get me on my rant, because I watch folks who show up at our type of events, and all of a sudden everybody runs out and buys a Strom. Now, Brian and I, we prefer the Velo Flyer, but
Indeed.
everybody runs out by a Strava, and I see him and I'm like, you, if you actually just went to the gym, you could just saved yourself $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my rant.
Oh, no, come on, we got to.
All right, so back to legitimate gadgets that the athlete can have, and legitimate gadgets that we can get data off of for you and I as coaches. We'll go with the power meter to start with.
Well, yeah, I think and I've actually
that's almost not even a gadget anymore.
No, that's a crankset typically. Ironically, though, I've actually got a couple of athletes that, are probably, I mean, these are, I've got a couple of national level, international level. I've got an athlete that just went and, podiumed in a C2 Omnium, a couple of months ago. Doesn't have a power meter,
right?
So I mean, it gets. Would it be handy? Yeah, I would love for this rider to have a power meter, and we're working on that. But power meter, yeah, I think absolutely, definitely. And as much as I rant about sitting in your living room on Zwift, because I like to. I will do almost anything. I will go out in 20 below weather. Bundled up, looking like what's his name from A Christmas Story, to avoid sitting in my living room for any amount of time. I love my Le Mans setup for the track. I love my my Watt bike, well, it's not my Watt bike, but the Watt bike I use, because I'm doing very, very specific things on it, and somehow that's okay. But I don't like sitting in my living room, following some avatar around, but I do see a huge benefit. It will definitely make you strong. It will definitely make you fit. And I think that's probably one of those things that, as much as it kills me to say it, everybody should have, because it allows you to really structure. Well, it allows your coach to really structure. Back to the coach thing, but right. It allows really good specific structure for exactly what you're doing at a given point in the season, for a given event. I think that's that's part of the equation for sure.
So I look at things as, are they training multipliers or are they training distractors?
Yeah.
And I think what you've just articulated are those things that are training multipliers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the train distractors become when a device is inappropriately used. So for instance, like this Oura ring or that Whoop that you just brought up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at the data, and hopefully we'll have Daniel from HRV for training on at some point in time, that when you get an HRV score that looks like crap, and then all of a sudden the athlete's like, oh, I need to take the day off, when they're kind of missing the point of what the HRV data is actually showing them. I think that becomes an issue. I think the one that I hate heart rate straps. And the reason why is I deal with a lot of masters athletes like like yourself. And a lot of my masters athletes will be like, oh, I shut down because my heart rate was getting too high. It's like, no, I don't. I want you to shut down when you can't pedal the bike at that given wattage.
Right.
Because we don't know why that heart rate got high. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, if someone's got tachycardia or something like that, of course, shut down.
Yeah, sure.
Goes back to what we talked about before, legit quit or shit quit.
Yep.
Legit quit is that if you don't, you're going to go to the hospital. Shit quit's when you look at the mirror and go, shit, I could have done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my rant on heart rate monitors. I think some of the SMO2 monitors, I think they've got a great training research side of the house, but none of us are at the level that we have to worry about our SMO2 on a training ride.
Right.
Yeah. Goggles with your power numbers. Don't see that shit.
I want, I want at this point in my career, I want goggles with a backup camera, so my neck that's all jacked up doesn't make me have to turn my head over my shoulder and find my opponent all the time. That would be handy.
Or when you're out riding at -10 degrees.
Yeah. Well, typically when I'm out on the road, I don't want to see what's behind me. I just, I keep that.
Yep.
So, the beauty of the heart rate, back to the heart rate strap is, if you're a healthy individual, it's got an auto shut off on it. That's kind of the beauty of the cardiovascular system. At some point when you can't go anymore, it'll let you know all by itself. You don't need a number to tell you. It's just going to go, you know what, we're done.
We're done.
Yeah. Have fun with the next 20 minutes of your life, but we're not going this hard anymore.
Right.
But I think that makes an interesting point. I think you have to take an almost a holistic approach to what you're trying to do too, right? You have to be in touch with the bike. You have to be part of the bike, right? You have to be situationally aware. You have to have cycling skills. You have to have tactical skills, all of which are every bit as important as what your FTP is. And I think the gadgety stuff, and again, as you alluded to it, I think it's very important that, is it going to be a multiplier or a distraction? If it's a multiplier, then treat it for what it is, analyze the data, better yet, hire a coach to analyze the data so you don't have to. I mean, my own training journal is always 2 or 3 weeks behind because I'm working on everybody else's stuff. So, if I didn't have to do that, and I guess I don't have to do it. I'm just, pig-headed enough that I do. But, let somebody else deal with that stuff. Go ride your bike. We all got into this, presumably the sport of cycling, but whatever your thing happens to be that happens to be listening to this, we got into it because we enjoy doing it, and I think we've gotten away from that. And I think we've gotten away from the kind of the fundamentals of our sport with that. Look at your data. Go, okay, cool. HRV's down today. Whatever. I've got a ride to do. My HRV yesterday, before I climbed on the Watt bike, was tanked. It was fine today. I didn't die, nothing bad happened. I'm back to normal today. For whatever reason yesterday, I didn't get good sleep, good recovery, good whatever, and I tanked my HRV yesterday flat out. Well, I didn't even look at it before I got on the Watt bike. Did the workout, did my day, and then went, oh, hey, look at that.
So I guess from an athlete perspective or a client perspective, this should be the question you ask yourself. Is this gadget going to help me train better? Or is this gadget going to provide data to somebody else that helps me be a better cyclist? And if the data is not going to help make you a better cyclist, then probably don't need it.
No. Yeah, I think that's
how's it going to multiply my abilities?
Yep, absolutely.
Right, and you gotta, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with you. So carry on, sir.
All right. So we've got about another minute because we normally like to do 30 minutes. So closing rant.
Closing rant. Yeah. Look at your sport. Look at the requirements of your sport. You're not a bike rider if you're on Zwift. You're riding, an exercise. You're training. Yeah, sure. Fantastic.
Cardiovascularly.
Fantastic training tool. But, if you're doing a Zwift race, you're not racing your bike.
Right.
There's so much more to that, and you know, whatever sport that entails, there are certain nuances that you can't forget because they're an integral part of the sport you're doing. And you know, I think taking a look at it, I know for myself, um, I have definitely changed my approach to how I look at my data and what I'm doing with it, and working very hard to remember what amounts to be the fun part of sprinting for me anyway, is the slicing and dicing and the tactical stuff and the strategy and everything else. And I think that has to have at least half of your attention. You know, it if you talk about our five pillars, you know, we've got four giant Greek marble columns, and we've got a 2x4 holding the rest of the ceiling up, which is the intangible stuff. And
Right.
we need to strengthen that pillar, I think.
Sounds great. Do you feel better?
I do feel better. No, this is this has been a month of me wanting to get this off my chest. So yes,
All right.
thank you all of you for letting me get this off my chest. And I won't guarantee it, but I'm going to try really hard to leave the rants alone for at least the next couple of months.
All right, and we'll be back on next weekend. We will drop 2 videos out in the next couple of days of our discussions with Jim. There'll be a part 1 and part 2 because he steps off into the Appalachian Trail, I think about the 11th of February. So, Brian, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Sir Chuck. And I very much appreciate it. And yeah, definitely check those 2 videos out. You want to talk about a hardcore, all-in sort of individual, that kind of defines it, I think.
All right, man. Well, I'll see you next week.
All right. We'll see you then.
All right. Later.
Bye.